Hi, I'm Andy from YouTube channel AndyManCam, and I'm a British content creator and motovlogger, previously based in northern Germany, but now living in Mallorca in Spain.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and this is a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. If this is your first time here, welcome, and thanks for listening. As you heard, my guest for today's episode is Andy, and I want to give a shout out to friend of the pod and friend in real life, Diana, also known as Dutch Minion on her bike. Diana helped facilitate today's episode, and by facilitate, I mean giving Andy a gentle prod to check his email. We'll get to my chat with Andy shortly. Just a couple of things for you to quickly note. Firstly, Trail Worn Films have dropped the second episode in their most recent series, featuring their travels through Portugal, Spain, and France. Go check it out. The link is in the show notes. Secondly, there's a newest channel on YouTube called Flying Low, which is making a bit of a splash in the UK motovlogging scene. In fact, former guest Dave Perry from Wheelie Good TV sent me a message to ask if I was aware of the channel. Go check it out and see if it's your kind of thing. Adam, the man behind the channel, is a relatively new rider, but a skilled filmmaker, I would argue. Okay, some quick reminders. The Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival 2027 has launched, and we are already taking submissions via our FilmFreeway page. Tickets for the festival are expected to be on sale sometime this month. Keep an eye on www.advmotofilmfest.com and the festival's Instagram account for the latest information. You'll find the links in the show notes. Don't forget, you can find the Real Riders podcast on Instagram, where I post, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, I occasionally post about that on Blue Sky. Links to both the Instagram and Blue Sky accounts are in the show notes. Finally, if you want to help keep the servers running, pumping out the episodes, you can support the podcast via Buy Me a Coffee donations. I have a few operational costs associated with hosting and remote recording infrastructure, and any donations go towards paying for those. The link is in the show notes and also in my link tree, which you can find in my Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube account profiles. Righto, let's get to my talk with Andy. Hi, Andy. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being my guest. How are you today?
Hello, yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks very much for having me along. How are you?
Well, I'm super. And this is where I might normally talk about the weather, but I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to jump straight into my first question, which will throw my listeners, it might throw you, but just try and keep up, people.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, isn't it? Come on.
Exactly. Your YouTube channel, AndyManCam, has been around since 2014, and as we record this, there are almost 470 videos there. Your first motovlog was published on the 29th of January in 2014 and consists of almost 18 minutes of what could be described as gloriously unstabilized point-of-view helmet footage. But right there, from the beginning of your video making days, there's a key feature which is still very much evident today, and that's the almost constant chatting throughout your videos. I guess that's a point of a motovlog. So I want to ask, do you always talk to yourself or an imaginary audience when you're riding a motorcycle? Or is it just something you do when there's a camera around?
Ooh, that's a question that's going to reveal quite a lot, I think, isn't it? Yeah, you've thrown me a bit there. First of all, I want to ask, when you say gloriously unstabilized, do you mean the actual visuals or the mental state of the recorder?
Oh, that's taken a path I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
I definitely was talking about the visuals.
Okay, but I think it applies to both a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah, of course.
I mean, how much time have you got?
How deep is your analysis?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop trying to dodge the question. Do you know what the weird thing is, actually, when I think I'm a bit of a camera whore, because when I'm riding on my own with the cameras off, which doesn't happen very often, to be honest, I mostly just stay quiet. I stay silent. Sometimes I might have a little bit of a sing-song in the helmet, but when I'm on a trip and I'm not recording something, I pretty much keep the lips sealed. It's a bit of a strange quality, I think, from me. It shows that I'm obviously a bit of a a bit of an attention seeker, I think. When the camera's on, as soon as the red light's on, I start dancing like the monkey and trying to entertain the masses. Yeah. Is that a good quality or a bad quality?
What do you think, Andy? Do you think it's... Sorry, I should not do
you should
that.
Be a therapist.
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely relate to that because, well, I don't know about the camera whore part, but I certainly completely relate to being sort of happy in silence while I'm riding. I mean, I was going to ask you, do you ride with music on? If you're not talking, do you ride with music on or something else when you're not filming?
I do if I'm on the motorway. Like if it's a long, boring stretch, I'll almost certainly put some music on. But the rest of the time, actually, no. I don't tend to listen to music very much. I think always because there's this chance at any moment I'll want to stick the camera on. Because like I said, there's almost always a camera on my helmet. Whenever I go anywhere, the camera's there even if it's off, kind of just in case. Because you never know when the roving reporter might see something worth relaying back to the fans. But yeah, no, so not so much music for me, but I do, like I said, I do sometimes have a bit of a sing-song on my own, which when I watch the videos back is always a little bit annoying because it's always, I had a thing the other day, I had a realization. I was riding along and it was in between two bits when I was trying to record some stuff for a review or something. And I started singing a song that had been like an earworm in my head for days. And I hated it. I just wanted to get rid of it. And I started singing this song. And then I thought, what are you doing, you idiot? You've had this earworm in your head for days, and then you've managed to get rid of it for a few hours, and now you've sung it again on camera. So when you edit this video next week, you're going to replant the earworm back into your brain again. And it is exactly what happened, and it was in there for another week. I hated it.
Are we allowed to ask what that song was?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if you've seen the craze on Instagram about this Puerto Rico song. Have you seen that at all? It's this like an AI-generated song about going on holiday to Puerto Rico, and it's too catchy. And there's millions of people that my wife follows have made videos about this song in the background, and it just got planted in there, and it was stuck forever. Like, so if you haven't heard it, check out the Puerto Rico song on Instagram.
I will look into that. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. I think I ride in silence, but I do have earworms, and it's almost the same earworm all the time, every ride, every year since year dot. Yeah.
What is it?
I probably got a few, but the main one, I think, is from a guy called Dave McArtney and the Pink Flamingos, which is an obscure New Zealand band from back in the day, from when I was a kid. I can't remember the name of the song. I'll put it in the show notes when I dig it out. But to finish that story, I remember hearing it in my sort of late teens, and in my late 20s, I was playing a game of cricket, which I did occasionally, and it was sort of this mercantile league in Auckland. I was playing with my brother-in-law, and somewhat bizarrely, two guys from that band, I think, were playing in our team that day. And it was like, no one understands. This is probably the highlight of my life. There should be camera crews recording this moment. Here's me playing in this very low-grade game of cricket with two like band musician heroes from my teens. Well, I could not have imagined a greater day when I was 18 years old.
Yeah, I bet.
And I have a feeling that Dave McArtney was one of them. Certainly Graham Brazier was one of them. And he went on to have a solo career, and he was quite a big name in sort of the 80s, probably 80s, should we say, New Zealand music scene. But it's actually a Dave McArtney song that's always in my head, and it has literally been there for years. I'll dig it out and put it in the show notes, maybe even provide a Spotify link for people to go and follow it.
That's impressive though. One song all the time. That must have really been burned in there.
Yes,
like it's scar tissue on the brain by now.
For sure. What other parts of your daily life? I mean, do you also provide yourself with a running commentary, or is this just a motorcycle vlogging thing?
I think it's mostly a motorcycle vlogging thing. I mean, there are moments when I'm I mean, I was talking to my wife about this yesterday, in fact, and saying about how sometimes I will mutter to myself while I'm walking around the house, and a little bit of a commentary, sometimes leaning towards the darker side of things, a little bit of a critique of what's going on and how I'm performing in my daily chores.
Okay.
But I think it's definitely most of the talking goes on when the camera comes on. The rest of the time, I'm actually quite a quiet person, I think, except for, I think my wife would disagree. In the morning, she gives me shit because when we first got together, I made the breakfast rolls sing to each other in some kind of Muppet-style theatre production, and she was like, maybe he's not the guy for me after all. But she stuck around, thankfully. But every now and again, that kind of stuff comes out again. But otherwise, I'm really quiet.
Okay, because I wanted to ask then, has anyone ever suggested you become a radio DJ? Or have you even done that?
I've never done it. It has been suggested a couple of times. And interestingly, the thing that I always wondered was, would I have enough to talk about? Would I have enough stuff to fill the airwaves with? And then, I guess, ironically, on the motorbike stuff, I'm doing exactly that. The difference, of course, being it's not live. So I can string together 4 hours worth of witterings into a 10-minute show, whereas in real life you've got to be on it all the time, haven't you? You've got to always have something to say.
Yeah. I mean, I used to work in radio, and watching announcers, it did seem to be like a muscle with them, obviously through years of practice and training, but they were never short a word.
Of course,
in any situation, which, as people probably notice when I'm speaking on this podcast, that's definitely not a skill that I've acquired, If I sound good, it's because I've edited myself to sound good, but live is a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, I agree completely that it's a muscle, because I would say over the years, so it's incredible when you say 2014 is when it started, but over the years I have found that I'll set out to make like a 15-minute video, and then find out I've got 4 hours of me just endlessly blathering into the microphone, and think, well, I only wanted to say a few things, and I've filled the SD card with just nonsense. So I think there's definitely an element of I've gotten better, shall we say, in inverted commas, at filling the airwaves, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's all quality stuff. A lot of it ends up on the cutting room floor, I have to be completely honest.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Just another sort of thing, a general question about motovlogging. So stand-up comedians often talk about wanting or needing to be on stage, which is something that sort of terrifies, I would say, a significant portion of the general population. And they do that because, paradoxically, of the control it offers them. If someone's going to laugh at them, they want to control or direct that laughter, even if they are the subject of that laughter. Do you see in any way parallels with the motovlogging experience? Wanting to control maybe the dialogue in some way, even though it's a one way, it's a parasocial dialogue, but still wanting to control that.
Yeah, definitely, because I think with the motovlogging stuff, you are 100% in control of the dialogue, aren't you? You're in control of the dialogue, the tempo, how long it goes. I mean, the only question is how long you can keep the attention of the audience that's watching, which I guess makes it a bit different from the stand-up experience, because they can kind of adapt as they feel that they're losing or winning the audience. But at the same time, I think the idea of doing stand-up, that terrifies me as well. That would definitely not want to do that without, I don't know, some kind of liquid-based reinforcement, because just that idea of, if you're losing the audience and you can feel it happening in real time, and you can see people not laughing at your jokes or heckling you, I think the motovlogging stuff is a luxury in that people can't heckle you while it's already done. It's already recorded. It's already finished. Plus, you can perfect the timing in the edit. You can perfect the sometimes even the sentence structure a little bit in the edit, as I'm sure you well know. And it just gives you so much more power retrospectively to make it better. Whereas that whole stand-up comedy, it's got to be right, and it's got to fit with the atmosphere of the room. And yeah, I can understand why a lot of people would find that terrifying. And I can also understand why the absolute linguistical ninjas that can actually do that stuff, why they would want to do it. That'd be like, sure, if you can fly, why wouldn't you fly?
Yeah. I have heard a number of comedians actually, or stand-up specifically, talk about the experience. And, once they've had a few sessions where it's completely bombed and they get experience and become more comfortable, they actually get to the point where they enjoy losing the crowd.
Really?
And that panic, because it's such a challenge for them. It's like, oh, well, this is going sideways. Well, this is exciting. What can I do? They've got over the fear of that, and they're actually stimulated by that experience. It's I guess it's almost kind of a drug-like experience for them. I've heard a number of them talk about that.
I've never heard that, but that's makes perfect sense, doesn't it? It's kind of like if you're faced with a difficult ascent on your dirt bike, and just like going, okay, I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to smash it because I've got the skills for that. I mean, I'm not talking about me specifically, a disastrous off-roader, but yeah, I guess it's the same.
Just the
it?
once, yeah. So you've been motovlogging for 12 years. So now maybe we are going to examine your soul a little bit. What keeps you motovlogging?
Oh God, got to dig deep now. What keeps me motovlogging?
Like what primal? What's the word? I'm trying to think of that line from The Silence of the Lambs, where Anthony Hopkins is asking, what's the essence, what's the pure essence of each thing and motivation? And that's kind of what I'm driving at a little bit here. What need is being serviced by continuing to motovlog? If that's not too personal and private.
No, of course not. Yeah, that's why we're here, isn't it? I think I'm going to have to try and unpack it myself a bit, to be honest. I don't really know. I think there's an element of I just want an excuse to ride my motorbike, and doing that is, as far as I can see, the best excuse. Plus, it also kind of pays for the hobby itself, the money that YouTube brings in, which isn't a fortune, but it kind of keeps the wheels rolling. Which essentially means that I can have a hobby which ordinarily, with my earnings position over the last decade or so, just wouldn't have been possible. Motorcycling is not cheap, so it's enabled me to have this incredible hobby and to do it to the fullest. Like, I can ride way more than I ever would have done if I'd have just been doing it every third weekend. I think I also enjoy sharing the experience and sharing the roads that I've ridden on and the places that I've visited, and because I understand that lots of people will never get to see those places. They'll never get to go to those areas of the world and ride a motorbike. So to be able to kind of share my experiences in those places for people who won't be able to go themselves, I quite enjoy the feeling I get from doing that, the feeling I get from kind of taking people along that won't, helping those less fortunate than me, if you like.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds a bit over self-grandizing and self-serving, but helping people that can't do it themselves, or maybe people that just need a bit of inspiration to, like, where am I going to go on my bike next? Or I'd never thought of that place, but Andy's just been there and it looked amazing. And I get a bit of a kick from being involved in that sort of equation.
You famously, and loyal watchers of your channel will know that you had a bit of an off in November last year, and you've been laid up, or you were laid up for quite some time as a result of that. Did you think about vlogging at that time? Like, was there sort of a craving to turn a camera on and talk to the camera, or do you really solely only associate vlogging with the motorcycling?
No. I did actually record a fair bit when I was off the bike. Not so much after the hospital part, because then things got really boring really quickly and stayed that way for months and months. So there wasn't a huge amount to share. But I did try and record as much as possible throughout the the hospital experience, because I was in there for 10 days altogether, waiting to have my legs screwed back together. And yeah, I turned the camera on myself as much as I could manage with the level of painkillers that I was on and the busyness of nurses coming and going and everything that was happening. And then when I was out of the hospital and got to home, like I said, everything became really boring really quickly. And I was basically just laid up for 4 weeks, couldn't really leave the bed except to struggle to the toilet once a day. And then after that, I tried to just kind of record. I think I managed every 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, just a little bit of an update, which obviously, again, had very little to do with the motorbike because I couldn't even get on the thing, let alone ride it. But I did try and record some kind of documentary style stuff to keep people up to date with what was happening, which I haven't done a huge amount of before, to be honest. Like, it's always been a kind of a side request in the comments that I've had from people on tour videos where they say, what happens the rest of the time? What's going on when you're not on the bike? And I've always been, I don't know why, but a little bit more reluctant to do that kind of stuff. And then, I thought this is the time to get over that reluctance and get the camera out as much as possible. And I think it's probably something I'm going to do more often now as a result, because the response was almost overwhelming, really. The response from these videos that had nothing to do with motorbikes, except for the fact that they were caused by a motorbike that snapped my leg into 3 pieces. Yeah, the response was amazing. People were so supportive, and the watch time, the views it got, the comments, all really, really, it was a real powerful effect because, as you can imagine, I was in a bit of a low point. Lying in the bed. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to move my foot enough to change gear again. Didn't know what the mobility of my knee was going to be like after the surgery. And these comments from these non-motorcycle centric videos really helped pick me up and pull me through that. So yeah, the whole recording stuff off the bike is becoming more of an ingredient for the channel, I think, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting in podcasting, and I guess mainly audio podcasting, but probably all sorts of podcasting. There's this sort of well-known pattern where the audience comes to the podcast because they're interested in the subject, but they stay because they like the host or the presenter of the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Honestly, I'm not sure that's the case with this podcast, but putting that aside. And when podcasters realize that, it's not just about the subject, actually people want to hear me, that almost sounds kind of similar to your experience with these post-accident, non-on-the-bike kind of videos where people, they're actually sticking around because of you. They want to hear you. They like, the relationship they have with you, be it a parasocial one. So actually that doesn't surprise me. In fact, I've even heard that on some podcasts that only occasionally have guests, often the episodes where they have a guest rate lower than the ones where it's just maybe a couple of hosts talking. So
really?
Yeah. It sounds counterintuitive to me. Again, maybe a reflection of my own feeling about this podcast, but that seems to be a well understood trend actually in podcasting. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand it. And I guess you'll probably appreciate this as well. I think it's, depending on the kind of the psyche of that podcast host, or like in my case, the motovlogger, it puts a bit more pressure on somehow. I imagine certain personalities would think, great, now I'm the center of attention and everybody's looking at my character. And I love that. Whereas I also simultaneously found it like, oh shit, now the spotlight's on me directly. It's not just on me, the motorcycle persona. It's on who I am all the time. This is on who I am when I'm at my worst. And people are now interested in that shit. And I'm like, I feel like I have to perform, not perform, because then that kind of takes away the authenticity of the whole thing away. But I have to, keep providing that glimpse into the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the pressure as well of people like, I'm sure you maybe have found the same, when people come because they decide they like your character, and then you have to keep on presenting that character or not, as the case may be. And then that's also a difficult reaction as well. Like, I found there were times where I was recording something in the hospitals, for example, and there was one bit, I can't remember exactly why it was. I think it was after one of my friends here on Mallorca sent me some flowers to the hospital, and I was mentioning it on the video, I think, and I burst into tears. I just kind of broke down in tears and thought, okay, stop recording that, and I'll wait till I'm composed again, and I'll go again. And then thought, what are you doing, you idiot? This is the realest it can get. Why are you editing out to try and create this perfect TV persona when, in actual fact, this is what people are really interested in seeing? It's kind of, it's difficult to navigate that when I've not really done it so much before. Just to get around this idea that real and authentic and not perfect and not polished is actually the good stuff, if you like.
Absolutely. I think it's fair to say I'm quite a private person. And so there is that tension between authenticity, maintaining a space for me where I feel still safe, I guess.
Of course.
But still trying to address what the audience is interested in. It is a balance of it's a juggle to balance those things.
Yeah, of course. How much do you give up?
Yeah. And I think it's one thing to do it on a microphone in my basement, in my house, which is what I do. To me, it's a whole other world to do that on camera, because I think you can maybe hide things a little bit in audio in a way that is a little bit difficult. Of course, you can hide it in the edit, but I was watching a couple of your videos where your bike decided to have a bit of a rest, and it would have been easy for you not to show the full sequence about when you were genuinely pissed off with yourself more than anything else, and yet you still did that. So I think that was a very authentic moment in those sequences where you did that. But did you agonize about that at the time? In the editing suite, I'm asking more about at the actual time. And obviously you were pissed off when the bike had a bit of a rest, but when you were putting those videos together, did you agonize about whether or not to include those sequences?
I don't think so, because I think at the point that I had turned the camera on, I'd kind of convinced myself, accepted to myself that was going to be in the video, because I kind of thought at the time that's the point of recording it. And it's also, like I said earlier on, it's something that I used to not do so much. I would even do stupid stuff like, I know this is massively clickbaity, but I'd do stuff like if I dropped the bike on the floor, I'd turn the cameras off and then pick it up and then start recording again, instead of going for the whole clickbaity, I've dropped the bike on the floor and now I'm going to pick it up, and then you've got the thumbnail and everything. Yeah, so I think at the point where I had decided to keep the camera rolling, the decision was already made when I got to the editing part, that as long as I hadn't said something that didn't make any sense or was a bit stupid, which does often happen when in the heat of the moment you realize that you were just completely blathering, which I'll probably be guilty of a few times during this podcast. But yeah, I decided that it was going to be in there, so yeah, I didn't want to agonize over it. It was definitely going in, because I also wanted, again, to kind of share the experience that, although I rage about that bike, I've got an Aprilia Touareg, for people who don't know. I rage about it being the best bike I've ever had, but that doesn't mean it's perfect, and there are still problems. And yeah, I kind of, from the whole reviewing, experience sharing, for want of a better term, influencing nature of the channel, I want people to see the full experience of owning that bike, not just that everything is roses and blasty exhaust pipes. There are moments when it all goes to shit.
I mean, I think even in your very latest video, or latest video but one, that was something that you said very clearly. Does it surprise you that you've loved that bike so much?
It does. It really does. I didn't expect to like it that much when I bought it. It was a bit of a a forced purchase, to be honest, because I had a KTM 1090 Adventure, and some idiot in Hamburg, when I still lived in Germany, ran into the back of me, and the bike was a write-off. And for some strange reason, the prices of KTM 1090 Adventures in the second-hand market had climbed by 20-30% in the meantime. And I couldn't afford, well, I could afford, but it didn't make any sense to buy a second-hand one. And then I got a great deal on a Touareg that had a few hundred display miles on it, and just decided to take a chance on something a bit new and exciting. And there were obviously the swirling rumors and stigma of Italian bikes and reliability and electrics and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, it's just been fantastic. And obviously, at the beginning, I thought it's a bike with a face that only a mother could love, and it didn't tickle my fancy in the aesthetic area, but functionally it was perfect. It was the right size, it had the right amount of power, it had the right weight, and I wanted to get into off-roading as well, so I wanted it to be light again, in inverted commas. 200 kilos is never light, but still. And I've just, every single ride, I've grown to love it that little bit more. Like, it's the best sounding bike I've ever had. It's the only bike I've ever had with the quick shifter that makes a little pop every time you change the gear, and it does lots of popsy crackly stuff when you're decelerating, and the handling is amazing. It's just incredible, and the intake roar is intoxicating. It's addictive and intoxicating. I absolutely love it. Every moment on that bike is a joy, despite the problems, despite it breaking my leg for me as well.
Yeah, it's all the bike's fault. Yeah. Okay. How have your goals or motivation? Sorry, this is all a bit sort of deep and inward looking, but just on the motovlogging, how have your goals or motivation changed over the period, if they have changed at all? I guess with regards to the channel, shall we say?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that's a good one, actually, because the goals and the motivation have changed multiple times. Like, at the beginning, I don't really know what the motivation was, if I'm completely honest. I had no plan, no goals. It was just like, I just fancied giving it a go, because I've always been interested in video cameras, and I've always been interested in video editing, although to that point it was very, very simple stuff. And I'd just been introduced to Baron von Grumble by a friend that I was working with at the time in London. And I just kind of thought, yeah, I could do that. Looks like fun. I'll do that. And again, like I said earlier on, it gave me an excuse to ride more and to get into it, because I'd only just got back into biking after a bit of a pause. So the beginning, the goals were, I don't know what, they were just all over the place. And then gradually it became kind of like product reviews and garage stuff and that kind of thing. And then I went through a period where I decided I hated being called a motovlogger. I wanted to be a filmmaker, which was a bit over the top, because I would never say that I've really made films, but I kind of started to lean more onto the aesthetic of the videos and trying to make everything look nice and getting the right motion blur and matching the colors between the cameras and all that kind of stuff. And I got really deep into that for ages, and then became deeply frustrated by the fact that it didn't translate to more views or recognition. It was, if anything, I think everything went backwards a little bit. And then it kind of morphed into sort of, the motivation was travel, trying to go to as many locations as possible and take in the most amazing roads and share them with people. And then it turned into off-road. I wanted to show the experience of a complete rank amateur at age 45 getting into off-roading with an ADV bike, which, as we've already mentioned, ended rather catastrophically, that whole experience, which again is something that I was motivated to share, because it is the stark reality of the fact that all of these early middle-aged men and women that are being convinced by the marketing gurus to buy themselves a 200 kilo plus ADV bike and start riding around the place, it can go wrong. And for many, it probably will go wrong.
How has your approach to video production changed? And have you been directed or forced to make those changes, like, for example, because of efficiency or a change of focus or interest, or just different goals?
I think I'm a lot less perfectionist than I used to be. A lot less. Like, I don't I don't really care too much about the color grading aspect of things. Like if I've got a mix of brands of cameras that I'm using at one time, I'll just let them be slightly different from each other, as long as they're kind of roughly tonally matched, which is also a challenge because I'm actually colorblind. So it's an interesting kind of hobby to pursue for a colorblind person to actually do color grading. Like sometimes my wife's come in and said, "Oh, that's nice, but the sky's purple. Did you know that?" So that was another reason, like when you say, have I been forced to make these changes? That's one of the changes that I think I probably have been forced by my own visual disability to make, in that I let go of the perfectionism of making the colors match. Like it doesn't matter. People don't come to watch and say, "Oh my God, look how those colors are all exactly the same." Like it's more about the subject. I'm also just much more accepting of again, everything not being perfect with regards to, for example, I used to get really angry. Like you never saw it on screen, and I think maybe people might have actually enjoyed it a bit, but I used to get really, really like serious rage when I'd ride for hundreds, sometimes even thousands of miles to go and ride a particular pass. And I'd get there and there'd be a camper van in front of me or a car crawling along and ruining everything. And I would just be screaming and shouting at this person, like, "You've ruined everything. The whole trip's gone to shit. It's all for nothing." Whereas now that I'm a grown-up finally, I'll just be like, I'll just park at the side of the road and wait for 10 minutes and then go again in a minute. Or I'll ride up and down a couple of times because it just doesn't matter. So yeah, I think I've just become more relaxed with the production side of things. And it's really made it much easier. It's made it a lot easier that I don't get into that rage so much. Like it used to surprise me. Like I would be just boiling with vehement venom for the entire world because my shoot wasn't going as I'd planned it. Like I'd have been a terrible director. It would have been awful. And now it's just like, yeah, like I said, I just kind of chill out and go, okay, I'll just stop for 10 minutes and take a breath, have a drink of water.
Yeah.
You'll be all right.
Yeah. So I have to ask one question that's kind of aligned with this topic, which is the hot topic these days. Have you incorporated AI into your video production in any way?
I have, but I think it's in a way that I can defend. I think it's creatively, it's not creatively bereft. And what I mean is that I think the only place that I use AI in my video production is to clean up my audio. Like I don't know if you've ever used DaVinci Resolve. It has a feature in it called AI voice isolation, and it's voodoo. It's absolute voodoo. I actually made a video testing out DJI wireless mics very recently and explaining how you can get the best out of them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the best way to get the best out of these microphones is to use DaVinci Resolve's voice isolation feature.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. And I use that almost religiously now because it's changed my audio game massively.
Yeah, so I was actually watching that video last night and it's great. And I would encourage anyone who's interested in this topic, and everyone should be, to go and watch that because it's a lot of A/B testing, starting off with microphone placement in the helmet and then moving on to the tricks using these amazing software tools. I do have DaVinci Studio as well, DaVinci Resolve Studio as well. I haven't used that feature in it. I haven't had to. But for my normal podcast production, I've recently started using something called DX Revive, which actually one of my former guests put me onto. Very expensive piece of software, but it's amazing for noise reduction. And the big thing that I work on, which is removing room reverberation.
Yeah, of course.
And I was using, and I still do use to a certain extent, Isotope as well to do that. But I cannot believe just how good it is. What a difference it makes. So yeah, guilty as charged as well. But I somehow think that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the acid test is, does it make the end product better? And I think in most cases with the AI stuff, it does not. It makes it visually less acceptable. Whereas with the audio stuff, if like in my example, I'm faced with incredible amounts of wind noise, and I want my voice to be coherent, and I also want to be able to put in some exhaust noise from the bike. And with this wind noise, it just kills everything.
Yeah.
So the fact that I can just click this little button and it miraculously all disappears, you can't argue with it. It makes the end product vastly better. And people have commented saying, how the hell do you get this sound? And yeah, that's how I cheat and use AI, but in a good way, I think.
Well, I mean, is it cheating? I don't know if it's cheating. Like, I think it's an ethical use of AI. I don't have any doubt about that, because it's not getting you to say something that you didn't say. It's not cloning someone else's voice. It's just...
This is true, yeah.
Just making it better.
There's nothing generative about it. It's very much regenerative, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I watched all of your Norway by Bike series. You know, with so many videos on your channel, there was no way I was going to be able to watch everything before we sat down for this chat. As always, I checked out some of your early work, which is something I like to do, and then look at your more recent things, such as the mic test or the audio test video we just talked about. But I decided I wanted to watch a complete series and chose Norway by Bike, which was published between late December 2022 and November 2023. You know, I wanted to get a sense of a full project that you'd made. You know, too often I have to dip in and just sample a filmmaker's work.
Yeah.
Firstly, as a viewer, I was given the impression that you filmed the entire tour, like almost every waking moment of that trip. Was that really the case, or was that just some clever editing?
I think it was almost the case. We probably filmed about 80-90% of everything. I put the cameras away, I don't know, kind of when the sun went down, pretty much. It's kind of returning to what I was saying earlier on about including stuff off the bike. This was one of the big, not so much criticisms, but kind of requests that people gave me, was that there wasn't enough off the bike stuff. And because I was there with my stepdad, who just recently had a kidney transplant, it was a bit of a cool opportunity to be traveling with him. And I wanted to record more of that stuff off the bike as well, for me, as well as for the audience, like just to have a record of the stuff we did, because we had a lot of fun. And yeah, as a result, I did then make an effort to keep the cameras rolling as much as possible, up to the point where I wanted to allow us to actually also have some private time together with, like, just not for everything to be recorded.
Mm. Do you feel any pressure to document everything or convey things in the order in which they occurred? I'm trying to think here of a parallel with, like, if someone was keeping a daily journal or a diary. So I did this, I did this, I did this. I mean, it gives a structure to what you're doing, obviously, but it may also limit what you're trying to do. But do you feel a pressure to do that?
I don't think I would call it a pressure. I think, if anything, I would maybe call it a slightly OCD tethering to the chronology of the event. Like, I think maybe I lack perhaps the imagination to mix up the order of things. Like, I've tried it a little bit, and I don't know if I'm very good at it. Like, and this is probably one of the big failings of my channel, is that the creators rather, who can lead in with this tidbit of what's happening, or they can lead in like a cool film that starts at the end and then you see everything leading up to that moment, kind of thing. That kind of stuff, it grabs you from the first moment, doesn't it? And that's something I need to work on, doing that kind of thing more, to get people sucked into this video, committed to it enough that they'll watch to the end. Because unfortunately, I don't do that so much. Yeah, and I think, yeah, like I said, it's just this obsessive tethering to how things panned out on the day. Partially a little bit because it means that production is faster, because there's less monkeying around with the order and trying to make sure it makes sense. If you just start at A and run all the way through to Z, you kind of can't really go wrong, and you obviously end up maybe sometimes with a slightly vanilla product, but there's less likely to be any mistakes in there or omissions that are vital to the story and to the flow of the thing, which obviously you introduce when you start making things more complicated and more like Chris Nolan-esque.
What was that? Memento, wasn't it? One of the big first films he made, where it was basically shot in reverse or something, wasn't it? Or
that was trippy, that one. I actually I remember I had the DVD that had two versions. It was edited backwards, like the theatre version. They re-edited another one where it started at the beginning and went to the end.
Which one did you prefer?
I think I actually preferred the backwards one because although it'd be interesting to go back somehow in time and wipe my memory and watch the forwards one first and then watch the backwards one second. But because obviously you watch the forwards one and you already know kind of what's happening. But there are bits just like with when you watch Fight Club, and then there's the end where suddenly you realise that I'm not going to spoiler anybody who's 20 years later hasn't seen Fight Club yet, but there's this moment where you think, oh yeah, that all makes perfect sense, and you spool back in your brain through the film. And watching Memento forwards was similar because it was like bits that you had to piece it together in your memory because you're running backwards in the order of the film. When you watch the film then forwards, you're like, that happened because it's linked to this, because you're kind of, it's interesting how the ordering of things just in your brain, the synapses just run differently, don't they?
God, was it on one of these podcast episodes where I talked about the fact that it was, where I talked about the way the Israeli security services use that as a technique to try and catch out people in a lie. If you ask someone to tell a story backwards, it's very difficult if you have not actually lived that story.
That's interesting.
But you can, if you did something, like I can tell you about my day in forwards and backwards, no problem.
Because it's real.
It's real. I'm not constructing it on the fly. But if you're, constructing something, it's very difficult to do that backwards and forwards without getting tripped up. Yeah, and they sort of exploit that. But
your parents should start using that on their kids.
Yeah. So, yes. When did you enter the pub? Or what did you do before you entered the pub? Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me how you didn't break the mirror in reverse.
Yeah. With filming so much, how did you manage all that data whilst on a trip? Because it must have been like literally terabytes of footage. Because you had two 360 cams and one POV camera as well from memory for that trip.
Yeah, and one camera on my stepfather's helmet as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course, right.
Gathering the footage from.
Yeah.
You're not far off actually. I think it was about 2.7 terabytes for that 2-week trip. And that was actually the first trip where I changed my entire approach. And it's something that I would recommend everybody else to do as well. Because before that, I always used to take a laptop, the smallest laptop I could afford at the time. I'd take the smallest laptop possible and hard drives. And I would, every evening, download the memory cards from the camera onto the hard drives using the laptop. And it would eat up 3 hours of the evening, easily. And unfortunately, because of having cheap and often questionable equipment, I would have to watch it like a babysitter to make sure these transfers worked, because obviously I wanted to use the memory card again the next day. And then one day, I don't know why, I just kind of thought, I'm wasting my life. Like I'm traveling to these amazing places and I spend 3 hours like the little meme cat in front of the laptop, just like plonking away on the thing. I can't do that. So I bought myself a stack of 512 gigabyte memory cards, and I actually had enough memory cards on that trip that the whole trip was on memory cards when I came back. I basically just got to the point where I would record the day's footage, take the card out, stick it in my little waterproof holder, put it somewhere safe, put another card in, and carry on with my life. And it changed the world. And I would put a little sticker on the ones that had data that needed to not be overwritten. And that was it. And that literally revolutionized my entire touring and video making experience, because it was less of a worry.
Have you had any data losses, like horrendous data losses?
I have, but embarrassingly, it was entirely my fault. This was, I think, back in the times when I was still using laptops or tablets to transfer the video files, and I accidentally formatted the wrong memory card at the end of a day's riding. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I was pretty upset. And then the only way I could fix it was to buy a piece of software for just under €100 online that I could then use to recover the memory card while I was out there. And I mean, as you could probably imagine, this on top of the 3 hours of copying the other memory cards, I sat there with this one trying to recover it, and it did this long analysis and went through all of the saving processes, and that took another 2 hours. And I eventually got to bed at about 3 in the morning, 100 euros poorer, and basically just ending up at zero where I was when I started. It was a disaster. But thankfully, touch wood, tapping the desk, I haven't had any real data corruption or broken hard drives or anything like that while I'm on the road, which is amazing, to be honest. In 12 years, that's incredible.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
So we touched on this a little bit earlier. So, the capturing of sound is a big deal to you, both voice and bike. And you've talked a little bit about using AI tools, but over the 12-year period, how has your approach to capturing sound evolved? Has it been like a constant battle, which it seems to be for a lot of people in the motovlogging space? Or did you sort of get things sorted out pretty early on?
Yeah, sound is the biggest obstacle, I think. It really is. It's a disaster, and it makes perfect sense. You're sticking a microphone in a tiny enclosed space, which is in a wind tunnel, basically. Like, what were you all hoping for, really? It's been a constant struggle, and if you've gone back and watched some of the early videos, I don't think you remember, my first helmet was an AGV something or other, and it whistled, which was incredibly annoying. And the wind noise was deafening, and I had a naked bike as well, which didn't. No, the first bike wasn't a naked one, but it was still windy. And you just go into this constant battle of, what if I put the microphone here, or if I put the microphone there? And I tried putting the microphone into the fingertip of a rubber glove, and I tried putting it into dead cat stuff. I tried packing it in foam. I literally tried everything. And then I think eventually I stumbled upon a good position of the microphone stuffed into the cheek pad of my helmet, which was great until I bought a new helmet, and then the whole struggle starts again. And the wind noise, it just ruins everything, because everything sounds rubbish when all you can hear is over all of it. And now we're starting this whole struggle all over again, now that the wireless mics have become a thing, which, on the one hand, if I could go back in time to me 12 years ago and say, hey, do you know that you can have a wireless mic, which means your camera's completely waterproof and separated from the microphone? I'd just think you're crazy. You're talking madness. That's never going to happen. It'd be like going 30 years back to me and saying that films are going to be on a CD. It's not... What are you talking about, you crazy person? Whereas now, we've got these tiny, tiny little microphones that give unbelievable level of quality for the audio. But the problem is, I think, and maybe, I doubt it, but maybe this will change at some point in so far as we get microphones made for motorbikes. But they're too sensitive, because people forget the fact that these microphones are made for interviews. They're made for talking to camera. They're not made for sticking into a 100 decibel wind chamber. So maybe we could get microphones that are less sensitive in the future, kind of like the equivalent of the the Shure SM55, but for motovloggers, like just this thing that you can scream into and it doesn't distort, kind of thing.
Or my favorite, which is the STC? It's the one that was designed in like the 30s. If you've ever seen a commentator at a sports, like a big football game or rugby game.
The one with the little like mustache lid on it. Yeah. So
they actually have a plate on the top with a fairly comfortable thing, which is designed to sit in your snot trad, is the space between your nose and the top lip, and you sit it in there to make sure that it's sitting at the right place. Yeah. And they're so insensitive that they won't work unless you're that close to it. And I've seen them at motorsports as well. But the thing is, they're actually designed and first manufactured in like the 30s, I think, possibly by the BBC or STC. I'll put a link in the show notes about it. But this is exactly what I was going to say. Most people forget that the lavalier mic is designed to sit on your chest. Yeah. It's not actually designed to sit in your helmet right next to your mouth.
No, and from your chest, it's designed to pick up all the nuances and tonalities of your voice.
Exactly.
So when you stick it here next to your mouth, obviously it's going to be like, oh my God, it's too loud. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's definitely a market, but it's maybe not a big enough market.
No, I think it's a tiny market. I think I
Yeah.
really do. Like I remember going through the various action camera brands and all the reviewers, the motorcycle-based reviewers, losing their minds about how this doesn't work for this and this doesn't work for that. And I was just thinking, well, these cameras are made for snowboarders and skateboarders and BMX riders and hikers and all this kind of stuff. Our niche is so tiny, and we're a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
The fact that we're expecting to have any kind of market power for these R&D departments it's fantasy, unfortunately.
Yeah. So for the Norway by Bike series, like we just discussed earlier, there were 4 cameras, 2 on your bike, 2 on your stepdad's bike. Like when it came to editing, putting those videos together, did you enjoy having all those options, all those different views to put those videos together, or was it like, oh god, this is 4 times, twice as much as maybe I normally have to deal with? Like, what was it like putting those videos together, having so many choices when it came to the visuals, at least?
I think that was it was a mix of the two, to be honest. Definitely a mix of the two, because it was fantastic to have so many available views. Because I had, I'm remembering better now, I had 2 360 cameras, because I had one on his bike, one on my bike.
Yep.
Which meant at any moment I had a choice of 360 degrees of where to look at, which was a real luxury, because the views in Norway are absolutely stunning. The place was like a biker's fantasy playground. It really was incredible. The valleys, the mountains, the fjords, it was insane. Everywhere you look, there's something incredible to look at. And I had the ability to do that from 2 slightly different angles all the time. So if one camera missed because there was something in front of it, the other one always got it. Plus with the helmet stuff meant that I could get kind of like good, I don't even know how you would explain it, but good kind of like visual dynamics with the way the conversation between us might be going. So I'm saying like, I'm talking to him, so I'll show him a bit, and then I'm saying something, so it will come back to me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
The other side of that is that for anybody who's edited with 360 footage, it's slow. It takes a long time, and it's really fiddly, because if you think every single moment where you want to tell the camera, right, look over there to that mountain, and then pan around as that mountain goes past, you have to manually plug in those keyframes to make it do that for every individual shot. And the problem I have is that because of my aforementioned OCD tethering to the chronology, I would basically synchronize the entire footage of all 4 cameras in one big long, like 8-hour chunk of video, and then go through and select the bits that I want to fit with the timing of the corners, the speech, the events, things that are happening, which means I couldn't choose the keyframes for the 360 video and where it could look until I know which moments are going to be in the final cut. So I would have to first edit them through with like this kind of like flat 360 image. And then after I'd chosen where the shots are going to be, then go into that and then choose the keyframes to choose where the camera's going to look and time it with the music and all that kind of stuff. So it was, on the one hand, it was this wealth of angles and views and choice, which made everything amazing. And on the other hand, it was a technical disaster. And it meant that I think I struggled to get those videos out with any kind of regularity. And I ended up, I think the very last episode I released about 18 months after the trip had finished.
Oh, okay.
Like it took absolutely forever. But I was really happy with it, I think. As a travel video, I think it's one of my favorites, I think.
Yeah, like, so I'm not usually a big fan of 360-degree cameras or the footage. It's often used sort of in a bit of a gimmicky way.
Yeah. I think less is definitely more with these things, definitely.
This is the thing that really surprised me watching the series. It's like, I didn't mind it. I enjoyed watching the 360 camera. And I don't know whether it was because you had 2 of them or just the skill of your editing, but it never felt like a gimmick to me. It didn't feel overused. So I just, my own personal view is that for all those many hours you put into it, it definitely worked.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that. It was Yeah, it was always trying to restrain myself with all of the shots to make it like, how can I make this a little bit less, just so that it doesn't, you don't want it to offend you in the eyes immediately with, this is a normal camera, this is a 360 camera, now you want to be sick into a bucket.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think you nailed it, because I've seen a lot that makes me want to be sick into a bucket. Now, I have to ask though, what happened to the sound? Because for the first episode and a half, maybe it was only the first 2 episodes, whatever, you had voice from both yourself and Ian, your stepdad, but then he was replaced by a kazoo. So just want to, you want to tell us what happened there?
Yeah, it was just equipment failings. Like I think the first episode where he's in it, I can't remember it. I think we just literally just stuffed a microphone that I had spare up into his helmet. And for some reason, yeah, that was it. And I used one of my cameras on his bike so that I could connect the microphone to it, which we couldn't do for the rest of the trip because the cameras were already busy doing other, I needed the extra shots to get the great scenery and the riding stuff. Whereas when we were just, the very first video where we're explaining his situation with how he had a crash and his bike was written off mere days before the trip.
Yeah.
We didn't need great shots for that because we were just outside my house, basically. I was picking him up from the ferry. But then I had this great idea that we were going to use our intercoms to record audio. Unfortunately, as Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan till you get punched in the face. And as soon as we got off the ferry in Norway, we got punched in the face because it didn't bloody work. I thought it was going to be easy and it didn't work. So then we tried poking another microphone with an audio recorder into his helmet, and for some reason the sound was just so awful it was unusable. And then I managed to throw my audio recorder onto the floor in a corner, like it was clipped to my belt, and it just fell off and rolled down the road and all bits came flying off of it. So yeah, the audio was a struggle from start to finish. So then what I was going for, I'm sure you'll remember exactly what I'm talking about. Like in the older cartoons when we were kids, when somebody would get on the phone to speak to someone, and on the other end, all you could hear, like on Peanuts, when you could hear on the other end was wah, 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 wah. So I wanted to get this kind of effect that I'm having a conversation with somebody, but it's not just silence and it's not just me talking into the ether, but instead something's coming back, and maybe in a kind of humorous, hopefully comically relatively well-timed way, you can almost get the idea of the gist of what he's saying, kind of like Han Solo talking to Chewbacca.
Yeah.
You've got no idea what he's saying, but you kind of maybe get the gist because of what's going on. And I tried to echo that sort of a dynamic to get the fact that we're chatting with each other, but he has no sound. So yeah, like you said, he's a kazoo.
So it worked. Because I wondered whether you had oh shit, what are we going to do with, I've only got one side of the sound here, but you persisted with it because when you were often riding along and you'd ask him a question and you get the, kazoo sound, and then you would explain, basically you would, for the audience, what Ian had said, or maybe not said, I don't know, because you were in charge of what was, said.
Yeah. There were some bits where I made up what he said.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there were bits where I actively teased him with that by, I'd asked him a question, a loaded question, knowing that I was going to fake the answer because it was good for my my comic plan for the moment.
Yeah. Well, that definitely came across. So I enjoyed that a lot. But tell me, how did you record all Ian's responses? Did you record each individual response in post-production?
I would love to say that I did. And the funny thing is, the idea came altogether from many years ago when I first moved to Germany. My parents came over to visit, and there was a moment where they rode up on their bikes from England all the way to Hamburg. We went out for a ride together, and they pulled up next to me, and I couldn't hear a word that they were saying. And Ian shouted something at me, which was pretty innocuous, and it wasn't all that important to the video itself. But what I did was I then took that recording, sped it up so that his voice was just like, and then used that to make it look like they'd said something that they didn't say to me because it was funny for the moment. And I thought, I'm going to do that for the rest of the videos then. But then very quickly lost interest in the idea of finding sections of audio, speeding them up, fitting them to the thing. And again, I actually just cheated and used sound effects from Epidemic Sound.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I'm ashamed to say I didn't create them myself. I just
It's okay. Well, but the thing is, you actually dropped every single one in. It had to be timed right. So it wasn't. I mean, you were probably able to do a lot of duplication, but you still had to. The silly response had to be the right length and was sort of the right tone for each occasion. So
yeah, definitely. And I did lots of cheating with like playing some of the effects backwards and shortening some of them and speeding some of them up. So yeah, there was still an element of creatively fitting it to the moment in there. But yeah, I just used this bank of sound effects. I think they were a mix of, some of them were a bit more like R2-D2 that were like interference from a walkie-talkie, and then another one was a kazoo just going wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. Well, if no one else appreciated the art and the technique you put, I definitely did.
Thank you very, very much.
What one person did. More seriously, I noticed that for, I think, the first 5 episodes, the POV camera you had chest mounted, and then later on you had it on your chin, and you actually talked about this in episode 3 of the series, how you had moved it up and down a little bit. What's your thinking these days? Where do you think a POV camera sits best, on the chest or on the chin? Or does it matter what bike you're on, actually?
Yeah, I guess it does matter a little bit about what bike you're on. Like, I suppose, like if you're on something like a Goldwing and you've got a chest-mounted camera, then all you're going to see is dash and car stereo and the microwave and all that stuff. Whereas I still think on the chin is the best. I think that's the best view that I've always been the most happy with, because it's so much more immersive, because you're getting every head movement of the rider. And just running back to the beginning of the podcast, when you mentioned about the gloriously unstabilized footage, the stabilization nowadays is so good that helmet chin mounted footage is practically like gimbal quality. Like, and it's not quite so sickening and eyeball jarring as it used to be. Yeah, but the chest mount, it does also have its qualities though. Like it is much more stable, and like if you're, for example, I guess if you're off-roading, if you're standing up a lot on the bike, then seeing the dash and the screen and stuff isn't quite such an issue. And the effect you get is really cool, because you get this kind of almost dreamlike drone sort of an effect of you're riding along with the rider, but you're floating from his perspective above everything that's happening. Yeah, for me, I think ultimately the chin is still the win.
Though one thing I noticed, like I've got a couple of GoPro 9s, which I know are a little bit dated now, but I also have from back in the day Hero 3, and the 9s are so much bigger and heavier than the 3. Yeah, now, you wouldn't want to put a 3 on a helmet because it would just cause nausea. But that's maybe one disadvantage, or the advantage of the chest mount. It's maybe a little more comfortable. You don't have the weight sitting on your chest rather than on your chin, which I think it can get a little tiring if you're wearing it all day on the chin. Or have you not found that?
No, I definitely have. And it's even, it's affected my choices with camera use, insofar as I've got a Insta360 Ace Pro 2, and I've got the DJI Action 5 Pro. The names are so ridiculous. And the DJI is noticeably lighter and smaller than the Insta360 is. And I actually notice the difference when it's on the helmet. So I tend to use the DJI camera more because it's less fatiguing.
Yeah.
Like I quite like the some of the effects and the wider field of view and stuff from the Insta360 camera, but I'll only really use that on a shorter ride, because it does get a little bit tiring because it's a bit more of a weighty chunk. So yeah, with the DJI, the winner takes it all, and Insta360, the loser has to fall.
Harking back to maybe a question I should have slipped in earlier because it's a bit more generic, but would you describe your motovlogging as pure stream of consciousness, or do you give some thought or planning to what you might say before a ride starts?
I like to think that I'm squarely in the middle. Obviously, when it's stuff like touring videos and just going out to ride a particular pass or something like that, then that would be stream of consciousness, because there's not really much that you can prepare except maybe I made a video riding the Transfigurasand, which the Instagram reel from that video has gone viral 3 or 4 times now. And it's because I think it's because I did a little bit of a research on the road and created this kind of like super dramatic intro to this video and put some dramatic video on it, but like kind of like in a kind of almost ashamed to align myself too much with it, but kind of in a Top Gear style intro to this thing, like, now we're going on to 100 kilometers of hair-raising twisties created by the the communist leader of Romania to avoid the impending attack from the Russians. Along those lines. This historically very inaccurate, but because of that, I think people stuck around and watched the video, whereas if I had just gone, okay, here's Transfigurasand, I think the video would have been far less interesting. So there was the element of doing some preparation for that kind of stuff. At the same time, I knew a framework of facts and then just ad-libbed some complete nonsense around it that I thought sounded kind of cool and dramatic. Whereas a lot of other videos, I will head out on the bike. I never have a script because I think it would be too dangerous to try and memorize a script and then to try and recall that script while I'm trying to concentrate on not dying. And B, it would be horribly disastrous to write it down and stick it on the tank bag, for example. Like the most I've ever done is to have a post-it note on a tank bag that had 5 or 6 bullet points. Outside of that, it was always like I would try and remember as much as I can. Like if I'm doing a product review, for example, try and remember as much as I can from the specs and things, and then the rest of it was just stream of consciousness with a little bit of, there's a loose framework of I know which points I'm going to try and touch upon, but the rest of it is just filling in the gaps, which isn't always successful. There are times when it's been an absolute disaster where I've gotten home and I think, like, you know how your brain kind of, your memories aren't necessarily the most reliable reminder of what actually happened. And then like I would come away thinking, I know I talked about this and I talked about that and I mentioned such and such and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd watch the video back and it'd be like I've accidentally, subconsciously substituted a word for a different word through the entire thing. Or I've completely missed point A, B, and C that I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned E and F. And it's like, oh, shit, how much of this can I... But I'll be honest, I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit there have been times when I've gone into the text and then substituted that word back again from somewhere else in the video and then had to go through and paste the word in rather than go out and re-record it. But yeah, this is the danger of doing ad-lib and making it up as you go along, is that quite often you get home and think, what the hell were you talking about, you blathering idiot? It just makes no sense.
You mentioned briefly Epidemic Sound a while back. What do you use for your music sources? Has that changed over time? I know you're a musician. Are you tempted ever to do your own, or have you done your own soundtracks?
Right at the very beginning, I used to use just kind of like as a Creative Commons music, the stuff that you could use through accreditation. Like that was the easiest way, but I found that very limiting very quickly in terms of availability and quality. And then I used for a long time, I think a good 5 years maybe, I used Soundstripe, which was pretty good.
Okay.
I was very happy with them until I just kind of got to the point where I felt like I'd used all of the music that suited my videos and my tastes and my style. And then I moved on to Epidemic. I mean, ultimately for all of these, I have to say, thank you for the music. But still use Epidemic, still really happy with it. And the good thing is that like they provided all the sound effects that I've used for various stuff. And with regards to me creating the music, that was always the plan, to be honest. It was always the plan that I was going to end up being this bard, this traveling Wilbury that would go around, like kind of like, did you ever see the series that Billy Connolly made where he was going around on his big trike and he took his banjo with him and he would play the music and then he would do a stand-up show and then he would ride around and show some stuff. That was kind of, for a long time in my mind, that was the the model that I was aiming for. So I'm going to be that guy that goes to this place, plays his guitar on a gig, records some music. The music is the soundtrack to the video. The riding is the kind of like the extra bit alongside the main chunk of the video, if you like. The problem is, it became wildly apparent that the video side of things is so involved and so intense, like labor intensive, that if I were to also compose and record the music for my videos, I'd never get anything finished. I literally would have like a video a month if I'm lucky, because I'm just not that quick. So I had to kind of let go of that idea and accept that it was either going to be video or music, because alongside all of this, I also have a music YouTube channel, which I'm not creating nearly enough stuff for, because the video stuff for the motorbike thing is taking so much of the time. So it was a bit sad, and it was a little bit of a disappointment to let go of that idea. But at the same time, it was at the cost of kind of being able to have any kind of production schedule and to get anything out there.
Mm. Do you feel any pressure, and this is sort of a YouTube channel management question, do you feel a pressure to maintain a release schedule or a commitment to your audience about how often you will put something out?
I do feel a pressure. I can't tie that pressure to any kind of actual timetable. Like, I wouldn't say that I have the pressure to release a video every week. And I've never done that. And I would love to be able to do that. But unfortunately, I've just never been able to make it work for various reasons, with other work commitments and just life, really. My life doesn't seem to fit a regular schedule for videos. Not helped by the fact that the videos are always so different. Like, some of them will take 10 minutes to make and some of them will take 5 days to make. But yeah, I feel the pressure. Definitely. I feel the pressure because I just think, firstly, I know it's coming back to this whole attention-seeking thing. I want to continually be current. Like, I want people to feel like they know what's going on, and they're in touch with the kind of they're aware that the channel is still existing and still creating content.
Mm.
I also notice very quickly that as soon as you stop creating content on a kind of sort of loosely regular basis, the analytics drop off sharply. Like, the YouTube algorithm really does let go of you quite quick if you stop feeding it with your videological feedstock. It's just like, you need to keep pumping this stuff into the machine. Otherwise, the machine is like, okay, well, talk to the hand then until you've got something for me. I'm not helping you out anymore.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I get. But mostly I feel the pressure because I hate it when there's been a long time with nothing coming out. There have been creators that I follow where after a long bunch of time when they just haven't released anything, you start to wonder, have they given up? Have they stopped making stuff? Are they still out there even? And I kind of have that fear of dropping off the radar, which also does happen. You notice that if you don't create something for a little while, like a month or two, the subscriber numbers drop off because people are just like, okay, he hasn't made anything for a while, so I haven't got the patience to wait. I'm out of here.
Okay, home straight. With regards to your own filmmaking, who have you taken inspiration from, or who would you recommend others to watch?
I was thinking long and hard about this, trying to think who I have taken inspiration from. And actually, I think I've come up with a bit of an interesting choice, because I've always really enjoyed his content, and I've really enjoyed his content because it's so different to everybody else's. And for a long time, he had a big, long break, and thankfully has come back. And he just, the day before yesterday, I think, he released a video which I really, really, really enjoyed, because he's obviously put a lot of thought into it. And it's not a typical motovlog. It's not a travel video. It's not a review. It's not any of these things. It's just, this guy's just had like a little bit of a creative brain fart about the struggles of the motorcyclist. And the video's absolutely brilliant, and it's got a real kind of old school feel about it, and the timing is a bit Breaking Bad-esque, like it's very long, but you still, if you know the guy, you just want to watch it to the end because you want to see what he's going to do next. And the guy is called The Crumble. Have you heard of The Crumble?
I don't think I have heard of The Crumble. Yeah, future Simon here. I need to correct myself. Turns out about 7 months ago, former guest of the pod, Nick Jacobs, excitedly messaged me to say his favourite motovlogger had just come back to YouTube after being away for something like 6 years. That motovlogger turned out to be The Crumble. So yeah, I was wrong here. And let's not talk of this incident ever again. Back to Andy.
He was one of the bigger names when I started out, and back then he was called Apple von Crumble, because I think he was taking the piss out of Baron von Grumble.
Do you think?
Yeah, a little bit. And he just made really good videos with great comedy and like kind of sketch humor and sketch style videos. And they were always like, you never really knew what was going to happen next. And one of his really good ones was he gets into an altercation with a guy driving a Volkswagen Golf, I think it is. And they look like they're going to have a dust up in a lay-by somewhere. And it's like it's drawn out like a bit, almost like something from The Office. And then the ending of the video is a massive surprise. And it's definitely, again, I don't want to spoiler anybody because I think you should go and enjoy his content. I hope that video is still up there. The end of the video is a massive surprise, and you realize that the whole video is not what you thought it was. And yeah, like the this one that he's just recently reviewed, he starts off in, it's like, you know, the films where there's the guy looking depressed in this old Victorian house, and he's like, Mama and Papa have gone to Italy for the summer, and I'm left alone with my melancholy. And it's really, really, really enjoyable. And he's one of the few creators that whenever he makes a video, I really want to watch it. I want to jump at it. And I also get really excited because he now responds to my comments, and we actually have discussions and stuff about the odd thing here and there. So it's like this guy that was an inspiration at the beginning now talks to me like a peer, and I quite enjoy that too.
Mm.
But yeah, he's just because he's different. I mean, I thought there's so many obvious choices, like great filmmakers and incredible adventure riders like Adam Riemann and I don't know, T.S. Hansen and Itchy Boots and all that kind of stuff. But I thought everybody's already watching those guys. Yeah. And I appreciate this other dude, The Crumble, just because, yeah, like I said, his humor, it tickles me. It tickles me, and I've probably put more pressure on him now because he did release a video recently about the pressure of having to provide, like to keep coming up with this stuff to keep people interested. So I don't know if maybe I've made his plight even worse if I pour some more audience on top of him. But yeah, really enjoy his stuff. And he's got like an old Honda Blackbird called Dave, which has it's like a gangster voice that comes out every now and again. Like when he's riding him along, he's like, "What do you think about this, Dave?" "Yeah, I like it, mate. I like it. Yeah, let's go." And then he folds the mirrors of the bike back to go through traffic. So yeah, go on and fold me his back. Let's have it. It's just really good. It's like it's good British humor, I think.
Sounds intriguing. I'm definitely going to check that out. Okay, final question. Does the filming enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
Ooh. I think nowadays it mostly does neither, to be honest. I think, and that's what I was always aiming for, is not for it to enhance the pleasure of the ride, but to not be a feature of the ride. Like for it to be like it's just there, and it doesn't affect how I act, it doesn't affect how I ride, it doesn't affect how the course of the journey or the day or the trip or whatever it is that I'm doing. It doesn't play a part. I wanted it just to disappear into the background, and it's like it's this invisible bystander that just happens to be there watching what's going on, and it's not affecting what's going on. Because at the beginning, it definitely used to. It was always, oh God, where am I going to be able to change the battery? And what's the angle on the camera like? And is the lens fogged up? And all of these things have either gone away because of technological advances, like the batteries last way longer, or they've just become second nature, like wiping the fog off the lens or checking the battery and stuff. It's all so second nature after 12 years of doing it that it just doesn't feature. So the ride is its own thing, and the videos is just, it's kind of a byproduct. And that's, yeah, it sounds really dismissive, but that's what I was always hoping for, that the cameras would be a kind of a non-issue. And I wish that for everybody else that records their videos, so that you can enjoy the ride for what it is. You can enjoy the trip for what it is without worrying about this technical nonsense that's going on with your camera. And then you can re-enjoy it later, because not only is the footage going to be more natural and relaxed, and it's just going to be like this real recording of what the experience was like for you, because you acted like it wasn't there. Like if you find yourself when the camera's there, you talk different, you act different, you ride different, then you're not only going to be affecting your ride in real time, but when you watch the video back, you're going to think, I shouldn't have done that maybe, or what was I talking about there? And yeah, that's a very long-winded answer for not at all.
Thanks so much for being my guest today, Andy. Now's your chance to tell folk where they can find and follow you online.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks very much for having me. You can find me in a couple of places online. I've got the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/AndyManCam, like the Candyman can, but with Andy and a cam. I don't know, I'm going to have to work on the t-shirt slogan. I'm also on Instagram, again, username AndyManCam. I think that's about it, actually. If you're of that bent, you can also check out my musical stuff. That's Andrew Page Music on YouTube. Otherwise, I hope to see you over on the channel at some point.
Excellent. Thanks again for being here. Take care and ride safe.
Thank you very much. You too, and everybody out there as well.